Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 of this alternate version of The Last Jedi. If you haven't yet watched part 1 or part 2, I suggest you watch them first before exploring part 3, as this version of The Last Jedi greatly differs from Rian Johnson's version of The Last Jedi. So I will put a link to both part 1 and part 2 below. Without further ado, please enjoy. Back on the planet, inside the Ebon Hawk, Rey finishes repairing BB-8, smiling as BB-8 whirs to life. "Welcome back," she says. "You are going to help me get this little tub back together." BB-8 beeps and moans. Rey's smile fades as Luke enters. "How's it coming?" Luke says. "I just got started," Rey says. "Ben told me what Ben said," Luke says. "Is it true? Was my mom the Emperor's hand?" Rey asks. "When I first met your mother, she was a mercenary. It was long after the Empire had fallen, but there were some remnants around. It wasn't until she tried to kill me that I realized she was on the other side. She tried to kill me many times, in fact. But in the end, I was able to win her over and had her let go of her hate," Luke says. "That is why I have to believe I can do the same for Ben." "But you were wrong. Mom didn't let go of the dark side. She created Kylo Ren," Rey says. "I do not believe your mother would have sacrificed Ben," Luke says. "Of course she would. What mother wouldn't do anything to save her child? And you obviously couldn't make the hard choice." "Mom was right. You always wanted to see the good in people makes you blind," Rey says. "Maybe, but I have to have hope. It's what keeps us going in the darkest of times," Luke says. He reaches out with his hand. "Give me your hand." "Why?" Rey asks. "Trust me," Luke says. Rey reluctantly gives Luke her hand. "Close your eyes," Luke says. She does so. "Breathe in and out. Calm your mind. Reach out with the Force. Feel me reaching back. Good. Good. Now, open your eyes," Luke says. Rey does so, and she is no longer on the Ebon Hawk. Instead, she is now in a lush green environment of Yavin 4, where a young 10-year-old boy is chasing a 3-legged wolf-like creature rabbiting through the forest. Luke is still standing beside her. A pregnant Mara waddles through the forest, followed by a younger version of Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie. "Fair is fair," Han says. "You got to name my child. Now it's my turn." "I am not naming my child Philippa," Mara says. "Philippa is a pretty name. My mother was named Philippa," Han says. "Your mother was named Hazel," Leia chimes in. "You are just trying to get me back because I told you everyone can use the Force, and you spent a month squeezing your eyeballs out trying to make your blaster move," Mara says. Chewie chuckles. "Oh, that's funny to you," Han grumbles. "I have the vids. It was pretty funny," Luke says. They walk past Rey, oblivious of her presence. "You all look so happy," Rey tells the older Luke. "That's because we were," Luke says, "for many years." "But this is all based on how you perceived it," Rey says. "Yes and no. It is from my point of view, but sometimes you can see things you might have missed if you give it a second look," Luke says. Rey watches as a young Ben darts farther from the group chasing the animal. He loses the animal in a thicket. Suddenly, a wilder, bigger creature with sharp claws seemingly camouflaged leaps out from behind the trees. Ben shrieks as the creature is about to pounce in. The creature suddenly remains frozen in midair. Ben looks over and sees Mara with her hand outstretched, freezing the beast with the Force, pretty much how Kylo Ren did it during The Force Awakens. "Thanks, Aunt Mara," Ben says. "You have to always be aware of your surroundings. Use the Force to sense danger, and use it to counter it," Mara says. Ben nods. "It's okay. That's why we're out here. To practice," Mara says. Rey turns as she sees the younger Han and Luke talking. "He's still having the nightmares," Han says. "Should I be worried?" "It's hard to say," Luke says. "Did he tell you what he saw?" "No, but he wanted to come down and see you today, to check on the baby," Han says. Luke sees the worry on Han's face. "Sometimes nightmares are just nightmares," Luke says. "But sometimes it can be something more. Especially with you Force users," Han says. "What did Leia say? Did she see anything?" Luke asks. "No, but she's not as strong in the Force as you are," Han says. Luke sighs. Well, he can stay with me for a few weeks if you want, just so you can be sure. Mara would love to have him, Luke says, as they and Rey watch Mara show Ben how she does that for his trick. Rey, enamored by her mom, reaches for her, and suddenly everything warps and changes until she finds herself no longer outside, but inside a hallway of a Jedi temple. She looks at Luke, wondering why a change of scenery, but before she can ask, a crash is heard down the hallway, and Rey sees Mara, still very pregnant, rushing to a young 10-year-old Ben, upset, sweating, in a meditation room that is in shambles. While the furniture have been flipped, artifacts knocked over, chunks of the wall have been ripped apart. Mara, every time I close my eyes I still see him, Ben says, sobbing. He keeps calling me. I think something bad's about to happen. Mara embraces him in a hug. I won't let anything happen to you. Is this why my mom and dad are so afraid of me? Ben asks. Mara looks at him shocked. I can sense their fear when I'm around, Ben says. Are they afraid I'll turn out like him? Ben nods toward Darth Vader's burnt helmet, half buried in the wrecked room along with the other Jedi artifacts. No, of course not, Mara assures. And your parents are not afraid of you. They are afraid for you. There's a difference. My mom never talks about him. Was he really as bad as everyone says? Ben asks. Yes, he was. But if you ask Luke, he would say that Vader also sacrificed himself when we needed him the most and saved us all. I guess it's all about perspective, Mara says. I don't want to be like him, Ben says, looking at the helmet. You won't. When I look at you, I see someone bred to be of the light. There is nothing evil about you. That is why Snoke wants to corrupt you, because he is afraid of you, Mara says. I don't think it's me he's after, Ben says, staring at Mara's belly. I think he's after her. He keeps calling her by name. He wants me to take her. I'm just not sure if I'm strong enough to fight him. Mara looks concerned for a moment, but then merely smiles. See? Nothing but good in you. Even at your darkest, all you can think about is how to protect your cousin who is not even born yet. Don't worry. Luke and I will train you, and when the time comes, we'll fight him together. Luke pats Rey on the shoulder. Do you really think this is a woman who would turn her back on her nephew? No, but I wouldn't believe this boy would turn out to be a mass murderer either, Rey says. People change. Anyway, how do you know this is how it happened? You weren't even there. This is not my memory, Luke says. It's yours. Rey appears shocked. She looks at Mara's belly. But I wasn't even born yet. You were far enough along. You could hear. You could feel. The Force just amplified things, Luke says. Like I said, you might notice things you hadn't before if you give it a second look. Rey turns back to Mara and Ben, then at Darth Vader's helmet. And as realization hits, we cut to Rey slamming the burnt Vader helmet before Kylo Ren, who's still in chains. You want to kill Snoke as badly as we do. That is why you want to be more like Vader, Rey says. I thought it was too dangerous to approach my ship, Kylo Ren says. I took my chances, Rey says. I'm right, aren't I? You said it yourself. You were second choice. There was no way you could defeat Snoke as a Jedi, not after he corrupted you. Your only hope was to embrace the dark side, let him train you, and become as powerful as Vader was when he defeated the Emperor. And when the time was right, when he completely trusted you, you would kill him for everything he's done. That is why you killed your father. Because he was your last pull to the light. He could weaken the dark side within you. Yes, Kylo Ren admits, but my father helped me overcome my weakness. And now, I am more powerful than you can imagine. You cannot win. Not alone. Surely you must see that, Rey says. That is why I have the Knights of Ren, Kylo Ren says. Luke defeated them without breaking a sweat, right before cutting off your hand, Rey reminds him. Do you really see it going any differently with Snoke? So, I should put my faith in Luke? Like all the other Jedi who died by my hand because he failed to do what must be done? Kylo Ren says. The Yuuzhan Vong never attacked during Darth Sidious's rule because he was strong. You and your Jedi are weak. What happened to you? Rey asks. Do you really want to know? Kylo Ren asks. He reaches out his hand and Rey is thrust back into the Jedi Temple in a bedroom, seeing Mara sleeping. Mara shoots up awake from her bed as she senses something amiss. Luke? Luke? Are you here? Are you back? She calls out. No answer. She gets up from her bed and approaches the door. Ben? The door bursts open and a wraith-like Snoke appears floating in the air. No, not Ben, Snoke says. I've come for your child. You can't have her, Mara says. She tries to force push, but it goes right through the Snoke wraith and punches a hole in the wall. Snoke force chokes Mara and slams her to the wall, gagging. His smoky hand rubs her belly. The power. I feel it coursing through her. Yes, your child will make an excellent apprentice. Get away from her! The 10-year-old Ben cries, lunging into the room with a lightsaber. He swipes at the Snoke wraith, but it harmlessly goes through the body like mist. The Snoke wraith whips out a lightsaber of its own and it clashes with Ben's. Mara pulls out her lightsaber to strike. Snoke merely pulls out a second lightsaber to counter Mara's. The battle is fierce, but in the end, Snoke uses the force push to throw Mara across the room and then uses lightning to bring Ben to his knees. Young boy, the power of the dark side is greater than any power a Jedi can possess, Snoke says. Snoke then coils his wraith-like body around Ben, choking the life out of him. Mara! Help! Ben pleads. Snoke merely smiles. Come to me, or I kill the boy, he tells Mara. Mara looks on helplessly at Ben. Knowing there is nothing she can do, she races out of the room. Ben cries over the betrayal. Snoke turns back to Ben. And that's what happens when you trust in the light. Snoke places his hand on Ben's forehead, and the poor boy's screams echo throughout the room. Rey gasps in horror. Then she is ripped out of the memory and back into the present. Snoke had made me his apprentice that night, Kylo Ren says, because your mom was a coward. Tears well up in Rey's eyes. She ignites her lightsaber and cuts Kylo Ren free. Kylo Ren rushes to his feet. That was a foolish move. My vengeance toward your mom is incomplete. Not until I destroy everything she holds dear. I know, Rey says. I also know somewhere in there is a boy who risked everything to save me. And you did. You took on a burden that was meant for me. Because my mother failed you. And my father allowed it to happen. You felt you had nowhere else to turn but the dark side. You sold your soul to the dark, just so you can one day give us a chance for the light. It destroyed you to kill your father. I see that now. But you couldn't show weakness. You have suffered so much. But you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore. Please, just let me help you. And how can you help me? Kylo Ren asks. By giving you what you want, Rey says. Luke Skywalker. As the First Order freighter near a casino planet, we see Poe staring off at the view screen. Leia comes up beside him. You almost let that poor girl kill him, Leia says. Would it have been so bad? He's responsible for killing millions with the Starkiller base. He's the reason Paige is gone. And now we are supposed to forget all of that? Give him a seat on the council, Poe says. You think I don't despise him? The First Order is nothing more than the Empire reborn. The same empire that destroyed my homeworld along with the father who raised me. But these are desperate times. And maybe, just maybe, we have an opportunity to build something new. Something that will stop the fighting. We have to look at the big picture, Leia says. And what if we compromise too much? Poe says. You're a natural leader, Poe. People will follow you. The question is, where will you lead them? To victory or to ruins? I can't tell you how to feel about what happened to Paige, but the best way to honor her is to live the way she would want you to live. She gave her life for you, so let it be for something. Poe ponders what Leia says. We cut to seeing Rose tinkering with a makeshift tracker in the engine room. Poe steps inside. I thought I'd find you here, Poe says. Yeah, well, where else would I be? Rose answers back. What are you doing? Poe asks. At first, I was thinking about sabotaging the reactor and killing every First Order person here. But I didn't know how to do that without killing us, so now I'm just trying to find my ship your friend stole. We never had a chance to talk. About Paige, Poe says. Rose pauses for a second. Then she gets back to work. What's there to talk about? Yesterday she was with us. Now she's not. Yeah, Poe said somberly. And it sucks. But we still have each other. Rose pauses again. This time she turns to Poe. Seeing he's reaching her, he adds, I'll watch your back. You watch mine. Deal? Rose nods. A small smile escapes. She turns back to the makeshift tracker as it starts beeping. You found them? Poe asks. Maybe, Rose says. As she dials in, we turn to Finn working on the Ebon Hawk with BB-8. He turns as he hears the comms beeping. BB-8 rolls to turn it on. No, wait, Finn says, right before being greeted by the face of Rose on the vid screen. Hey, Rose, is it? About your ship. No worries, forget about it. It's in the past. My sister died, by the way. I might have been able to save her if I had my ship. If I wasn't locked in some locker. Perhaps when her fighter got damaged, I could have swept in with the Ebon Hawk before it blew and got her out. But the important thing is, you got to make your love connection. So, how was it? Everything you dreamt it would be? Rose asks. Finn's usual swagger is gone, replaced with deep regret, not knowing what to say. Poe jumps in. Rose, may I? Rose hops off the line and gives it to Poe. Did you find Luke? Poe asks. Yeah. How many did you lose? Finn asks. Too many, Poe says. I'm sorry. I saw how much she meant to you, Finn says. Yeah, thanks. We're working with the First Order now. We have a new enemy, Poe says. Yeah, we heard, Finn says. That's what Luke's been prepping for. Supposedly, he has a plan. Well, it better be a good one, Poe says. We're meeting with the Hutts right now to form some sort of galactic alliance in order to prepare a counterstrike. I'll call you back afterwards. Finn nods. Poe signs off, noticing Luke has entered behind him, overhearing. Rey said you knew this was going to happen. Why didn't you do anything to stop it? Finn asks. Why didn't you? Luke says. Finn cannot answer. I have seen many futures, and you know what I learned? The future is always in motion, but the past is what stays with you. We will never really know how things would have turned out if we had done something different. All we can do is learn from our past in the hopes of forging a better future. Finn lets it sink in, but then turns and looks out the window as he sees Rey and Kylo Ren standing before the shuttle side by side, the Knights of Ren following right behind them, all free from their chains. Luke sees it also. I have a bad feeling about this, Finn says. We quickly wipe to Finn sitting on a rock saying, Okay, now I really have a bad feeling about this. Are you crazy? We can't trust him. We now see he's in a huddle talking to Rey. Luke, Kylo Ren, and the Knights of Ren are also in the huddle, with R2-D2 reconfiguring a robotic hand for Kylo Ren. It is the only way. Kylo Ren is the only one who can get us into supremacy without being blown away. We have to pretend to be his prisoners, Rey says. Prisoners? I thought Snoke wanted to kill Luke, Finn says. No, I want to kill Luke. Snoke wants him alive to suffer in front of everyone. Until Luke and everyone else's hope is broken, Kylo Ren says. He fears killing me will make me a martyr, Luke says. Yes, Kylo Ren says. Even if you bring me in, you won't fool Snoke. He will know it's a trap. He will be prepared for it, Luke says. We're counting on it. His overconfidence will make him put his guard down. His overconfidence will be his downfall, Rey says. Finn, still not convinced, says, And how do you know they just won't hand you over to Snoke as Snoke originally planned? I trust him, Rey says. I've seen into his mind. He won't let anything happen to me. Look, I get it. He made some big sacrifice for you a long time ago, but that was a different person. This man right here is the same one who killed our friends. He killed Maz. He killed Han. He can't be trusted. This is a bad idea, Finn says. Maybe, Rey admits, but it's our only shot. The First Order freighter sets down on the landing pad right outside the casino landscape. Leia, Hux, Poe, and Rose step out. Why am I coming again? Rose asks. I thought you could use a nice change of scenery. Besides, I'm not leaving you alone with 20 First Order officers. You might try to sabotage the reactor and blow them up or something, Poe says. Unbeknownst to them, another ship also lands on the other side of the landscape. Inside, Captain Phasma and the Praetorian Guards ready their weapons. I get the first shot, Phasma says. Meanwhile, Leia, Poe, Rose, and Hux walk through the crowd of people playing the casinos, betting the races, selling weapons. Arak should have everything we need. Blasters, ships, men. If you want anything, he's the Hutt to ask. He has made a fortune of bringing people weapons of mass destruction, Hux says. Great. It's nice to know people are living well over our misery, Rose says sarcastically. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that slave look so cute in chains? Leia nods that she has heard enough. Poe drags Rose aside, away from Leia and Hux. We get it, Poe tells Rose. Do you? Because this is wrong. We are aligning ourselves with criminals and killers. There are some lines we should never cross, no matter what, Rose says. These are desperate times. We are literally fighting to keep our galaxy from falling apart, Poe says. If we betray everything we stood for, then what's the point? Is this what my sister died for? Is this what they all died for? Rose asks. As she says those lines, we see Phasma and her Praetorian Guards sweeping through the casino searching for their prey. We have to trust Leia, Poe says. She's our leader. That doesn't mean she's always right, Rose says. Poe, she listens to you. Tell her not to go through with this. There has to be another way. Please, don't make this be our future. Poe ponders about it for a moment. As he ponders, his eye catches a Praetorian Guard making his way through the crowd. Poe grabs Rose and they duck into the midst of the crowd. They found us, Poe says. The Praetorian Guard sees a Mandalorian escorting Leia and Hux through a door. He reaches for his comms. We have to get in there. Now, Poe says. He and Rose rush for the doorway only to be blocked by that same Mandalorian. You are not authorized to enter, the Mandalorian says. We're with Leia, Poe says. The Mandalorian pulls out his rifle. You are not authorized to enter. Inside the room, Leia and Hux stand before the throne of Arak and his Hutt wife surrounded by mercenaries. Arak laughs at Leia. How have things changed in such a few days? You didn't want me in your space? Now you begging me to come to your aid. Do you really believe this Yuuzhan Vong invasion will stop with us? Leia says. Outside the throne room, Rose and Poe still try to get in. You don't understand. We are about to be ambushed, Poe says. You need to leave. I am not going to tell you again, the Mandalorian says, pointing his rifle at Poe. Back in the throne room, Leia continues on. Our only hope is to unite our forces. Hux also steps in. You've worked with me before. You know I'm good for it. Give us the men, ships, and blasters, and you shall be well compensated once this is done. While they talk, above them, Phasma lies on a scaffold, readying her sniper rifle. Even if we were foolish enough to join your hopeless cause, it won't help. They have a weapon that can crush the sun and scorch a planet with fire, killing all. They've already used it twice in just a few days, Arak says. They're exterminating us, Leia says. No, worse than that. Snoke comes from a molten world that has no sun. They are trying to make our planets more like theirs. They're terraforming, Hux realizes. And rumors have it, they are now making their way to New Alderaan, Arak says. It looks like he is trying to draw you out of hiding. Phasma aims her rifle at Leia's head. Outside the throne room, Poe was still blocked by the Mandalorian pointing his rifle at him. Look, I'm going through that door. You're just going to have to shoot me, Poe says. With pleasure, the Mandalorian says. We don't have time for this, Rose says, whipping out the taser stick and zapping the Mandalorian unconscious. Come on. Leia and Hux turn as Poe and Rose rush inside. Leia! Phasma's here, Poe cries. Hux looks around and sees Phasma's sniper rifle. He grabs Leia and pushes her out the way just in time, the blast barely missing her head. Praetorian guards scamper down from above. Arak's mercenaries fire at the Praetorian guards, but they seemingly dodge all laser fire as they plunge their laser spears into many of the mercenaries. Poe also laid down cover fire as he and Rose try to rush to Leia's aid, only to have a Praetorian guard come in between them, swiping his energy blade and vibro whip at them. Poe and Rose barely able to dodge his assaults. Phasma leaps down the scaffold, mowing down all mercenaries on her path toward Leia. Arak pushes a button on his drone, and his drone transforms into a small weapons platform hover chair and blasts a couple of Praetorian guards. Phasma pulls out her metallic spear and throws it at Arak, piercing the hover chair and causing it to crash down. Arak slumbers out from under his chair as Phasma leaps before him, her blaster aimed at the slug's head. But before she can get the shot off, Hux blasts her in the shoulder, spiraling her to the floor. He tries to finish her off, but Phasma quickly grabs her spear and slices Hux's blaster in half, her spear quickly at Hux's throat, only for Phasma to be flung across the room. Hux looks over surprised to see Leia had force pushed her with an outstretched hand. "Thanks," Hux says. "Just returning the favor," Leia says. Phasma angrily gets to her feet and flings her spear at Leia, who merely stops it with the force inches away from her face. With a wave of her hand, Leia force throws that same spear into the chest of a Praetorian guard attacking Poe and Rose. Another Praetorian guard rushes for Leia. Leia tries to use a force push on the Praetorian guard, but the Praetorian guard merely shrugs it off. "Your powers don't work on us," the Praetorian guard says before plunging his blade into Leia's stomach. "No!" Poe says, shooting that Praetorian guard from behind and rushing to Leia's side. Meanwhile, First Order troopers bust inside the throne room, laying down short bursts of fire, killing off the remaining Praetorian guards from behind. Poe pulls the blade out of Leia, who has closed her eyes. Poe whips out his med spray and sprays it on her wound, freezing it. Rose comes over. "Is she?" "She's still alive, but she needs to get to a med bay fast," Poe says. "We have one 2 levels down," Arak says. Poe nods for the few straggling mercenaries to take Leia away. A couple of First Officer troopers follow. Seeing Phasma now alone and seemingly wounded, Hux approaches, grabbing a blaster from a fallen mercenary. "I guess we're back where we began," Hux says smugly, pointing his blaster at Phasma. "Never," Phasma says. She pushes a button on a device. Suddenly, small devices on all the dead Praetorian guards begin blinking. Hux notices, but too late. Every Praetorian guard explodes, and the room caves in on itself. As the smoke clears, Hux's leg is pinned under the rubble, his blaster merely a few feet away from him. Before he can reach for it, Phasma towers over him, her blaster aimed at his head. "Now it ends," Phasma says. But Phasma is shot from behind before she can pull the trigger. She turns around and sees Rose with a blaster. Rose fires again, and Phasma drops dead. Hux smiles. "Good job, girl. Now get me out of here." Rose merely stares at Phasma's blaster. She picks it up and aims it at Hux. Wait! What are you doing?" Hux says. "No one will know. They would think Phasma killed you before I could get to her," Rose says. Hux puts his hands up. "No, stop!" "Rose, don't," Poe says, coming into view. "Why not? He's killed so many of our people. Why does he get to live?" Rose asks. "Because it's not about him. It's about us, who we are. You said it yourself. If we betray everything we stood for, then what's the point?" Poe asks. Rose shudders, tears in her eyes. She drops the blaster. Poe grabs her and lets her sob in his arms. "It's okay," Poe says. Moments later, Arak stands before his lovely wife lying dead with blaster holes. He doesn't even turn as Poe and Rose help Hux hobble over. Arak merely says, "You want my men? My ship? My blasters? You got them." Poe looks at Rose and then says, "Thanks, but no thanks." "Are you insane?" Hux begins, but Poe quickly says, "Shut up, Hux." Poe turns back to Arak and says, "Yeah, you'll help us now, but you'll sell those same weapons to our enemies the moment they make you a better offer. We don't need that kind of help." "You forget, we just took your precious Leia to Medbay. Her life is in our hands." "Show me some proper respect," Arak says. "And that's why we can't work with you. You will always hold us hostage the first opportunity you get," Poe says. You will sacrifice everything over principles? Arak says. Principles are all we have, Poe says. And what about the people of New Orderon? Are you going to let them die over your principles? Hux says. The Yuuzhan Vong fleet will be there in days with their new weapon to destroy its sun. They are going to destroy my homeworld? Rose says. Are you now ready to renegotiate? Arak says. Poe thinks for a moment before saying, no. We'll meet that fleet head on with whatever resources we have. History has already proven we can make it through with a lot less. We'll just have to improvise. Poe turns to leave and then stops to add, just know, if we fail, they'll probably come after you next. I hope you're ready. Poe starts walking. Arak mumbles a curse in his own language before saying, wait. Poe stops. Arak looks at those dead Praetorian guards. Obviously, we'll die unless we work together. Name your conditions. No more selling to the highest bidder. You're with us all the way. We will pay a fair market price, but no more slavery, no more pirating. In exchange, you'll have a seat at the council and a voice in this galactic alliance, even after this crisis, Poe says. A voice? You'll trust us pirates to run your government, Arak says. Well, technically, you wouldn't be pirates any longer, as you would be part of the established government, so... Yeah, Poe says. Any other demands? No more cruelty to animals, Rose says. Poe shoots her a questioning look. What? We're on a roll. And I mentioned that, Rose says. Poe shakes his head and then continues. You heard her. This is a fresh start. Are you in? In the Ebon Hawk, Rey and Sailor work on fixing the cockpit. BB-8 eyeing Sailor carefully. Your droid keeps looking at me, Sailor says. That's because he doesn't trust you, Rey says. I don't know why we just don't use our ship, Sailor says. That's because I don't trust you, Rey says. Besides, your ship doesn't have hidden compartments. Finn rushes in. Rey, come quick. Rey bolts to her feet and races after Finn. They run to Luke in the lounge area, who's kneeling down with a blank stare frozen in place. For the first time, Luke looks like a feeble old man rather than a wise Jedi master. What happened? Rey asks. I don't know. We were talking and he just keeled over, Finn says. Rey goes to Luke. Luke, Rey says. He doesn't move. Luke, Rey calls again. Still nothing. Dad, Rey says. Luke slowly looks at her. A tear rolls down his cheek. It's Leia, he says. Rey fears the worst. Is she? Not yet. I always knew when I left that I would never see her again. I just always thought it would be me. In many ways, she taught me what it was to be a hero, and she saved my life more times than I can count. I wouldn't be who I am right now if it weren't for her. You really love her, don't you? Rey asks. Yes. Then why? Why give up your only chance to be with her? Rey asks. For you, Luke says. I've seen many futures, and this was the only way to save you, and Ben, and the galaxy. What parent wouldn't give up everything to give his child a chance for a future? Rey nods, finally understanding. All these years, alone. Were you ever tempted to just turn away from it all? Luke smiles. Many times. But then, I reached out with the Force, and I saw you. And I remember what I was fighting for. Rey holds back the tears. Well, the ship is ready to fly. Good, Luke says. He hands her a long lightsaber hilt. I know you're used to fighting with a staff over a lightsaber, so I made this for you. Rey ignites it, and it's a double-bladed lightsaber a la Darth Maul style. Do you think I'm ready? Rey asks. No one is truly ready, but you can do it, Luke says. You say the Yuuzhan Vong are immune to Force powers. How do we defeat them? Rey asks. Why do you think we invented lightsabers? Luke says with a wink. Just because they are immune to Force powers doesn't mean we don't use them. Trust in the Force. Let it guide you. Also, I believe if you Force throw a large enough statue or a sharp enough object at them, they will feel it. Rey nods, smiling. Luke grows serious. There will be a moment when we're up in Snoke's ship where Ben will betray us and he will attempt to strike me down. You have to let him, Luke says. What? No, Rey says almost angrily. You have to. What's left of the Republic will depend on it. If you don't, we will lose, Luke says. I don't understand, Ray says. Why tell me this? Because in the future where I didn't, you killed him shortly afterwards in a fit of rage, and he must live. Only together can you defeat Snoke, Luke says. For the sake of the Republic, you must let him strike me down. Everything hinges on it. And this concludes part 3 of the story. Now, the only thing I'm really going to discuss is the political agendas within this story, at least 2 of them. Because like I said in the beginning that I would try to do political agendas that I think Kathleen Kennedy would have wanted done, but I would try to keep those political agendas in universe so as not to take a person out of the story but keep you in it. And 2 of them I have done. The first one, which I believe is more blatantly obvious, was the war profiteering angle. I used Eric the Hutt basically to show that there are people out there who are basically profiting over the power struggle between the Republic and the Empire. As it goes back and forth, as the names change, these constant people are basically profiteering over whichever side is in a weaker state and taking advantage of that weakened state. So I started the breadcrumbs where Arak was basically taking the Twi'leks and selling them as slaves in the beginning on part 1 because the Republic was seen as a weakened state. And then I also reveal in this part that yes, Arak also supplied the First Order with weapons because the First Order was in a weakened state and they needed those weapons to combat the Republic. And then finally show how the cycle can continue by having the Republic now crawl into Arak and are trying to form a galactic alliance and utilize Arak's weapons because now they're in a weakened state and they need to stop the use on Vong. And throughout this whole time, as all these powers are changing hand, the Hutts are the one profiting over these influxes of power, over these people fighting desperately for freedom and justice, and the only one really benefiting out of all of this are the war profiteers. And how do you combat that? And my obvious answer was you stop the cycle by, no matter how desperate you are, you don't succumb to the war profiteers. You don't succumb and continue the cycle by continue buying weapons. So that's how I solved it. But yes, I even had roles in the story blatantly say that, is this who we are? Is this what we want? Is this what our people are dying for? For these people to take advantage of us and for us to be aligned with people who do not have our best interests in mind. And I have rules blatantly say that, and then I have had to have Poe make the decision. The second political agenda I really wanted to hit, which might not be as obvious, was that I wanted to touch upon the women's plight that possibly started the Me Too movement. And that's the plight of a woman who has been violated in some way by a man of power. And that woman tries desperately for someone to hear her screams and cry out for justice, but it's often overlooked or it's often not thought of, or it's also the woman is somehow put into the background because this person is a person of power and this person is usually might be exonerated or even put into a higher position of power, and the woman's plight is unheard of, and the woman has to suffer alone, and it's really a tragedy of what happened to many women in this world. In order for them to feel like they have to get ahead, they have to be violated in such a fashion. And how I did that was I did it through Phasma, actually. In one sense, you could say yes, Phasma is basically death incarnated as she goes out killing everybody she's coming in contact with. And in some sense, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to make her a personification of death. Yes, that part is true. However, she's also a woman who was violated in the beginning of the story. She was tortured by Hux, who is basically an evil man. Because she was tortured because she helped the Republic at gunpoint, destroyed the Starkiller base. And now, once free, she's looking for her vengeance. She's looking for her justice onto this guy. But not only does this guy get away, this guy gets exonerated by the legitimate government, which is the Republic. So he gets exonerated by the Republic for his actions. And not only that, he gets promoted to a seat on the council of a new galactic alliance. This is the same man who basically ordered the destruction of many planets with Starkiller Base, who has tortured her, basically violated her. And her screams and cries are unheard of while she seeks her vengeance to the point where she's later killed. And the reason why that happened is because that's what happens to many women. Their plights are unheard of. They scream and cry foul, and they're the ones who are seen, and the guys are the ones who are seen as the victim, and the other girls are not. I just put that political agenda in there, but I did it very discreetly. I didn't take us out of the universe. I kept us in the universe for her plight, her expression, her motivation why she wants Hux dead, which I believe makes it a far more effective story than her just wanting to fight Finn because he is a traitor and he basically is a person who ran away from the First Order. So, yes, she represented the plight that many women might have had over their lives where they are violated in some fashion and then is seeking justice. And sometimes their justice is found, but many times their justice die out in the crowd because other factors or other people's agendas becomes more important than theirs, and their lives are ruined for it. So yeah, that was a political agenda I hit on, but I kept it in the universe so as not to distract you. It can be effective, but it's not a distraction. The only other thing I would hit on besides that is the fact that I had Rose kill Phasma. For those who wonder why I had Rose of all people kill Phasma, it's a simple reason. I wanted to show that Rose was just a few degrees away from taking her place. And that to me was very critical because I wanted to show that anyone can become a villain of the story if you let hate enter your heart and can't get rid of it. No matter what was done to you, no matter what evil was done to you, if you let that evil control you, if you let that hate and anger control you, then yes, you can become the next villain of the story, which was almost like what Rose was becoming to some degree, and she had to get snapped out of it. Other than those elements, I don't really want to say too much else. I really want your stuff to be what your feelings and your emotion to be what your feelings and emotion is. And I would love to hear what your opinion is of the story. So please feel free to comment below. With that said, I will ready part 4 shortly. I'm sorry for the delay on this part. I got sick, and because I got sick, my voice was shot, and I know I'm not the best voice actor, but I wanted to give you something, especially at this point where we're doing a lot of emotional stuff. But yeah, other than that, I hope to see you in the next one. Remember to click the like button, and if you really like it and want to see more, subscribe. Thank you. Bye.